He hadn't eaten in 2 days. You know what I mean? That kind of hunger that makes you forget your own name. And well, she hadn't cried in 3. Her eyes just dry and far off, like she'd run out of reasons for tears and settled for stubborn. The sheriff, he wanted justice, or at least the kind folks clap for, the kind that's loud and quick. The whole town wanted a show, to see something get sorted in the dirt, and if it cost a little boy his dignity, so what? The rancher, though, he just saw a scrawny kid with rusted cuffs and a grip on hope so fierce it made grown men look away. I was there. Half of Grayson showed up for that auction, jaws clenched, hearts even tighter, dust swirling in the morning heat. The block set crooked on the cart like it was meant for shame. Sheriff was up there on the flatbed, chest out, acting like this was Sunday service and we were all here to hear the gospel of order. And standing next to him wasn't a man, but a barefoot boy, ribs sharp as saw blades, shirt torn and caked with dirt and whatever pride he'd scraped together. And in his arms, swaddled in a feed sack, a baby girl, couldn't have been more than a few months, limp arm, soft curls, her breath barely stirring. Not a sound, not even a cry. That's what made the crowd hush for half a second. That, and the way he stood, turning his skinny frame to shield her from the wind. Name's Tommy, the sheriff announced, didn't even bother to check. Caught him stealing bread, ham, and onion. The crowd laughed. You ever seen a crowd laugh at a hungry kid? Ain't right, but that's how it was. Tommy didn't budge, didn't blink, just held the baby closer, like that bundle was the last good thing in the world and the only thing he owed loyalty to. Sheriff Spitz says the girl's his sister. They're orphans, but law's law, right? Couldn't hang him. Too young for the gallows, too old for mercy. So, the crowd gets what it wants. Auction starts at $1. The man who wins gets the debt. The girl comes with. Didn't matter what Tommy thought. Or Ruthie. Their lives for sale, and the only folks bidding are the ones who think they can get a bargain out of suffering. Voices in the crowd. $2, $3, all the way to $7. Each bid lands heavy. Tommy's knees shake, but his face is stone. Then, just as the sheriff's calling for aid, a voice cuts through. 10. Heads turn. No one's seen the man before. Dusty coat, gray beard, hat low. Sits a horse like he's born to it. But there's something about his eyes, steady, calm, like he's weighing the whole world and still not sure it's worth the trouble. Name's Marshall Rigg. He gets off his horse, slow, deliberate, like he's got all day and nothing to prove. Crowd's whispering now. 10 is the bid. No one tops it. Sheriff tries to warn him, says the boy's trouble, the girl's sick, but Marshall just says, then I'll fit right in. I tell you, the look on that sheriff's face, like someone dropped a snake in his boot. Marshall unlocks the cuffs himself, crouching down so he's eye to eye with Tommy. You got a name, son? Tommy. That's Ruthie. Marshall nods, checks the baby's lips, says she needs milk and sleep. Tommy mumbles he tried. Marshall offers his hand. The kid looks at it like it's a trick, but he takes it. Nobody stops them as they walk out of town. Some mutter about charity, others just shake their heads. Marshall leads the kids to a wagon, hands Tommy a blanket, tells him to wrap Ruthie. Where we going? Home. The ride is quiet, the kind of quiet where you're waiting for something bad to happen, but hoping this time it doesn't. Ruthie coughs. Marshall hands a canteen. Doesn't even blink when half the water spills. By night. They reach a cabin at the edge of a ridge, tucked in pines, smoke curling from the chimney like it's been waiting. Inside, fire's burning, soup on the stove. Marshall settles Ruthie in a cradle, pours soup for Tommy. The boy eats like he expects the food to vanish any second. He says Ruthie's sick. Marshall promises to fetch a doctor at dawn. That night, Tommy sits by the cradle, watching his sister breathe. Marshall watches from the doorway, remembering a cough, a grave, a cross. He covers Tommy with a quilt. At dawn, Ruthie's worse. Blue lips, shallow breaths. Marshall rides out, comes back with a doctor and medicine. If she makes it through the night, she'll live. Nobody asks what happens if she doesn't. The night is thick with silence, broken only by Ruthie's breathing. Tommy's jaw is set, fists clenched, but he won't cry. Marshall sits by the fire, eyes darting to the cradle. When Ruthie finally stirs, it's like the sun comes up inside that tiny cabin. Tommy whispers, "She's okay." Marshall just hands him a cloth. Doesn't say it's not over. Days turn to weeks. Routine sets in. Marshall working, Tommy helping, Ruthie slowly recovering. Marshall carves her a cradle. Tommy polishes it till it shines. At night, Tommy reads from an old Bible, stumbling over the words. Marshall listens. One night, Tommy asks if God's forgotten them. Marshall says maybe God lets us find each other, even when it's hard. Word spreads in Grayson. Folks say Marshall's lost his mind, taking in strays. One man, Cord Alton, the new deputy, takes it personal. He wanted Tommy for himself. He rides up to the cabin, tries to lay claim. Marshall stands his ground. Cord warns him, winter's coming, council's talking. Marshall just says, let them ride up here themselves. First snow falls early, thick and heavy. Marshall keeps the fire going, teaches Tommy how to chop wood, split logs, read the wind. But trouble doesn't wait for storms. It comes at night, 3 riders, Cord and 2 others, breaking down the door. Marshall's ready, rifle in hand. Standoff's tense. Then Marshall fires a warning shot, splinters raining down, sends them running. But the council sends a letter, return the children or face legal action. Marshall rides to town, finds Pastor Ward, asks him to make it legal. They fill out guardianship papers by candlelight. Marshall comes home, doesn't show the kids the papers, just tucks Ruthie in and sits beside the cradle, whispering that she's stronger than she looks. But the town doesn't give up. Sheriff, Cord, for more men ride up, demand the kids. Marshall sends Tommy and Ruthie to the root cellar. He steps outside, faces the men. Shots fired. Not from Marshall, but from the tree-lean. Neighbors, folks who've kept their distance till now. The men retreat. Tommy asks if it's over. Marshall says, for now. But we're not alone anymore. Winter turns brutal, but inside the cabin, it's warm. Pancakes for breakfast, laughter by the fire. Marshall teaches Tommy survival, patience, how to aim, how to hope. On Ruthie's birthday, February 1st, they make a cake. She laughs for the first time. It almost feels safe. Then come the bounty hunters, sent by Cord. 3 men, cold-eyed, guns easy. They want Ruthie. Marshall tells them no, makes it clear, she's his, blood or not. They promise to return, double bounty by month's end. Nights grow tense. Marshall trains Tommy, teaches him to shoot. They fortify the cabin, brace for a siege. And it comes, late February, snow swirling, 10 men this time. Marshall hides the kids in the root cellar, fights alone. Gunfire shreds the night. One bounty hunter sneaks in, shoots Marshall. Tommy hears, climbs out, shoots the man over Marshall. More break in. Tommy stands his ground, fires until the room's silent, but for the crackle of fire as the cabin burns. Smoke everywhere, Ruthie screaming in the cellar. Tommy hauls Marshall and Ruthie out, dragging them into the snow as the cabin collapses. He walks 4 miles to Grayson with Ruthie and Marshall on a mule, half dead with exhaustion. Pastor Ward finds them, gets the doctor. Marshall's patched up, barely. Sheriff tries to arrest Tommy for defending his family. Marshall stands up, declares Tommy his son. The town, for once, sides with them. Neighbors rebuild the cabin, stronger, wider. Seasons pass. They take in more kids, orphans, runaways, lost souls. By Ruthie's 18th, over 40 kids have passed through their doors. Folks call it the Ridge. Some say it's a place for the broken, but those who've been know better. It's a place where a man once stood against the world for a pair of children no one else wanted. And a boy became the kind of man who never ran from a fight worth having. 15 years after Marshall's death, Tommy stands on the ridge, Ruthie at his side. He tells the town, you're measured not by what you own, but who you protect. And when the day's done, he kneels at Marshall's grave, thanks him, and listens to the wind. And somewhere in that hush, you can almost hear a promise kept and a future built, not just for one boy, but for anyone who ever needed someone to stand up and say no. Not today. So, what do you think? Where does justice end and mercy begin? Would you have stood your ground or walked away? Drop your thoughts below, because sometimes the best stories are the ones we argue about long after the fire goes out.